Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert.
Right.
Marketing Architects.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hello, hello.
We're back with your weekly Nerd Alert. Every week, I'll take a deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob, and of course, for all of you. Are you ready to nerd out, Rob?
I'm ready for my dose of vitamin nerd, Elena.
Perfect. Let's get into it. As always, we'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week, I read Ageism Kills Brands by Zachary William Ainsbury, Stephen Bellman, Carol Drissner, and Bill Page, all from the University of South Australia. We are going to talk about marketing to different age groups. But first, Rob, what's a brand that you used in childhood that you are still using today?
Ooh, Mountain Dew. Definitely Mountain Dew. Although I have transitioned from the regular to the unleaded in terms of the diet Mountain Dew. But no, I always love a good Dew 30. What time is it? Dew 30, Elena?
Yeah. That is pure poison, but it's a good example because no surprise, Mountain Dew, it's a pretty big, successful company. And I think that if anyone listening to this is trying to think of what's a brand that I had in my youth that I'm still using today, they're probably a pretty big, successful brand. Like for me, I think of Tide. Like I remember my mom using Tide. I still use Tide today. So let's talk about this. Let's keep that in mind as we get through the study. Man, I missed my joke. I was going to make a joke about how you'd have to be a successful brand to be around since Rob was a child. That's funny. No.
This is true.
I missed it.
This is true.
Okay, let's talk about it. The study explores how the age of your customer base can influence the success or failure of your brand. The researchers looked at 17 years of panel data from Kantar. This data covered over 5,913 sub-brands. So these are specific product lines or variants that fall under a larger parent brand. They did this in 101 product categories in the UK. They wanted to figure out if there's a connection between the age of a sub-brand's buyers and whether that brand is growing, stable, or on its way to becoming extinct. This is actually an extension of previous research into buyer age profiles of new-to-market, growing, and declining sub-brands, but it adds research into dead brands. And that gives us some really interesting findings. But Rob, before I share the results, I want to know what you would think or guess here. Do you think successful brands are more likely to attract more quote-unquote young buyers?
I guess I would like to better understand how you define success. Because if you're like Netflix or TikTok or even Patagonia, yeah, I do think they're successful brands and they're bringing in young buyers. But if I think of like other successful brands like Lincoln or Home Depot, they're successful brands, but I don't know if they're bringing in young buyers or if it makes them more attractive to young buyers.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they're defining success probably as profitability, is what I would guess, or revenue, or like the size of the company, I would think is how they're defining it.
No, I don't. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to be wrong. That's what the article is going to tell me. But I think it depends upon the objectives. So I'm going to say if for the right brand, sure. But I don't think that's a general rule that applies to, it's like a force of nature. If you're a successful brand, you automatically by default get younger buyers.
You're actually pretty correct. This is kind of a trick question because you could be correct or incorrect depending on like the age of the brand. So let's talk about it because, of course, like everything in marketing, the answer is more nuanced. And let's start at the beginning of a brand's life. So one of the first questions they asked in this study was whether younger consumers are more likely to buy new-to-market products. So that idea was if a brand skews too old, it might be headed for trouble right when it launches. The study found that when a new product hits the market, it's 3 times more likely to attract younger buyers than older ones. But here's where it gets interesting. If a sub-brand continues to only appeal to younger buyers over time, it can actually increase your risk of failure, which means that an early win can turn into a slow death if the brand doesn't manage to attract a broader, more age-diverse customer base. So Rob, you might be thinking, why does this happen? Well, younger consumers, they're typically less loyal. They like to try new things, but they don't always stick around. Older consumers, on the other hand, might not jump on the latest trend, but they tend to be more loyal to the brands they know and trust. So the study found that for a sub-brand to stay healthy and grow, it needs to attract and retain buyers across all age groups, not just young buyers. But here's the bottom line. Outside of this early launch phase, where you might naturally attract younger buyers, and that's a good thing, neither growing nor declining sub-brands appeal disproportionately to either younger or older category buyers. So growing and declining sub-brands, they appealed to both young and old age groups. So beyond the early launch phase, growth or decline was not related to the age of your customers. But one of the most striking findings that made this study different from the first was about dead sub-brands, or those that had been pulled from the market for at least a year. Before these sub-brands were shut down, they had something in common about their audiences. They were more than 3 times as likely to skew towards younger buyers. So while it might feel good to be the hot new thing among the Gen Zers, if you're not bringing in older customers too, you might be setting yourself up for failure. So this study challenges the idea that you should focus all your energy on capturing younger consumers. Yes, they are important, but if your brand doesn't appeal to everyone, it's going to struggle in the long term. So in conclusion, if you want to grow market share, you need to build mental and physical availability among all category buyers of all ages. Oops, I just hit my microphone. Of all ages.
All right. Are you going to hit me with a Rob GPT there?
Yes, I'll help you out.
All right.
Okay. Imagine your brand is like a wedding DJ. If you only play the latest hits that the younger crowd loves, you'll get lots of attention quickly, but when the trends change, your audience might move on. However, if you mix in some classic tunes that appeal to all ages, you'll build a loyal fan base that sticks with you through all the ups and downs. The study found that sub-brands need to play a mix of songs appealing to both young and old to stay popular and avoid fading away when the latest trend loses its shine.
That was one of the better Rob GPTs, Elena.
I feel like I'm learning how to work with the Rob GPT. It always wants to give me like a garden example, but we're starting to get some. Yeah. So what did you think?
I think it makes sense. I mean, in many ways, I'm glad I wasn't as wrong as I thought I was going to be, given the kickoff question. So yeah, it does seem nuanced. It seems, again, I'll go back to what is the goal too, in terms of expanding your audience or better relating. If you're an old brand, but you're trying to reinvent yourself, or you're a new brand and you're trying to be more relevant and extend your audience. So yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I found it really interesting, the stuff about dead brands, how they were 3 times more likely to appeal to younger consumers. And I think about some of the products recently that have become a trend and stuck around. Things like the crossbody bag that started with younger kind of consumers, and now almost everybody has one. So it broke out of that age group. Or like the Yetis, I think seemed like they were more of like younger thing, but now everyone you look at has got a Yeti. But then I think about things like the fidget spinners. You don't really see those anymore. I wonder if those ever really broke free of the younger demo that they were working within. I know like Snapchat struggled with that. Like, how do we get older demos too? So It started to make sense when I thought of it.
They needed to come out with the high-end fidget spinner, the real with Bluetooth in it, and make it relevant to us old nerds.
The AI fidget spinner. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Taylor De Los Reyes for producing the show. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you like the podcast, please leave us a review. Now go forth and build great marketing.
Sometimes I try to throw out a little nerd joke in the beginning, and some make more sense than others. So that last one probably
it's great.
Vitamin nerd.
It's the hardest part is knowing what to respond to, like how to respond.
And I may come up in the moment, so I'd be like, okay. Yeah. I don't even know how I'm going to respond.
Marketing Architects.